Morning, everyone. Good morning, Monica. Good morning, Ginny. Good morning, Niranjan. Good morning, everyone. Yeah. So today we start off. I think you have completed most of your sessions on Ind AS, which is why we are now coming to the most important part. How do we transit from an existing gap to the Ind AS framework, which is commonly known as first time adoption? So we had this parent standard IFRS 1 and that is brought into as Ind AS 101. From your examination perspective, it comes on and off, not very regular, but it does have its appearances. From a practical perspective, this standard is very important because this is the standard that tells you how you do the adjustments when you're transitioning from an existing gap to the Ind AS regime. So, what is important right now is you should be knowing the treatment under the earlier accounting regime, that is your accounting standards. You should know the treatment under the Ind AS regime, and you should know the treatment that is there under the Ind AS 101 for transition. So, first of all, tell me one thing. Transition or movement to Ind AS is applicable to which entities? Ind AS applies to which entities? Ind AS applies to which entities? You would have studied in your very first class on Ind AS, right? The framework, or what you call the manner in which Ind AS was implemented. किसी को याद है? Yep. If you recollect, Ind AS is yes.
Listed company and 250 crore above companies.
Okay. Okay. So it is applicable on, she's right. It is applicable to listed entities. Listed entities or net worth exceeding 250 crores. So when this is the situation, it is mandatorily applicable. Mandatorily applicable. Acha, can I voluntarily move into Ind AS even though I don't meet the criteria?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Once you adopt, you cannot go back.
हाँ जी, ऑब्वियसली आपने एक बार Ind AS में कदम रखा, फिर आप वापस में अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड नहीं जा पाएंगे. ओके, तो यू विल बी स्टक इन Ind AS forever. Okay, so either mandatory transition or mandatory applicability, or voluntarily also you can go ahead and adopt Ind AS. Now, tell me one thing. Moving from accounting standards to Ind AS, this is nothing but a change in accounting policy. Do you agree to this? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Moving from AS to Ind AS, this is nothing but a change in accounting policy. And because it is a change in accounting policy, what have you studied under Ind AS 8, I think, na, that deals with this particular requirement? Yeah. So what have you studied? Change in accounting policy रहा तो क्या करना है हमको? Yeah.
Retrospectively इसको restate करके
Yes. That is retrospective restatement is necessary. So when you are doing a change in accounting policy, what is important is the retrospective restatements start getting mandatory. The retrospective restatements start getting mandatory. Okay? So that is the basis for doing your first time adoption. Now, what are some of the common cases where you see such applicability? Okay. One is lease accounting, Ind AS 116 versus AS 19. AS19 क्या बोलता था? AS19 who had given you some 4 to 5 parameters for identifying a finance lease. Okay. Useful life should be covered. Then present value of minimum lease payments should be covered in the value of your asset. Okay. So ऐसे तीन चार चीजें the asset is customized for you. ऐसे 3 to 4 indicators were given and that would meet the definition of finance lease. If not, it would end up being an operating lease. That is why all these building rentals, etc. जो भी है, they would be for say 5 years, 10 years, whereas life of the building is say 25 or 35 or 50 years. So therefore, they would end up being operating lease, and you would end up treating them as an expense in the profit and loss account. But Ind AS 116 does not have this particular treatment. Ind AS 116 gives you the exception only for small value leases or low value leases. Otherwise, Ind AS 116 is mandatorily requiring you to treat it as a lease arrangement wherein you will find out the present value, you will recognize an ROU asset as well as a lease liability, you will amortize the ROU asset, and with the help of the effective interest rate, you will accrue the lease liability until it is paid off on a periodical basis. You remember this Ind AS 116. So when I move from AS19 to Ind AS 116, it does involve a lot of calculations because what you are having right now is this treatment. Okay. Coming next, you are having something known as revenue recognition, right? If you remember revenue recognition, for example, warranty that is given free along with the product. What you used to do under accounting standard 9? Anybody? AS9 में हम वारंटी का क्या ट्रीटमेंट करते थे? Yes. Warranty, I would recognize sale at a full value and I would make a provision separately for the warranty as a best estimate of the warranty cost that I would incur. But Ind AS 115 क्या बोलता है? Anybody? What does Ind AS 115 tell us? Yeah. What does Ind AS 115 tell us? Come on. Yeah. बोलो यार.
Sir, in India's we will not we will not create like a provision separately.
Hmm.
We in the full amount of the sale transaction we will consider the warranty value.
आप
Warranty
सही
value.
कह रहे हो. Go ahead.
Uh,
Basically, Ind AS 115 बोलता है revenue should be recognized based on fulfillment of performance obligations.
yes,
Here
sir.
you are having two obligations. One is delivery of product. Second is warranty services. Product तो आपने deliver कर दिया, but warranty services are yet to be delivered. So you will not recognize the full revenue. Instead, what you will do based on the standalone selling prices of warranty as well as the product, you will do a split of your selling price, and then whatever is related to the product delivery, you will recognize the revenue immediately. Whatever is related to warranty, you will defer it over the tenure of the warranty. Very simple. So, up Ind AS 115 में what you are doing, you are actually ending up recognizing a lower revenue and pushing the revenues to the later period for recognition. Whereas under accounting standard 9, you would book the full revenue and then make a provision for warranty costs separately. Okay. Then what other differences? You have just come fresh from financial instruments, right? Financial instruments may. Do you remember amortized cost method? Yes. For accounting for loans, do you recollect amortized cost method? Yeah. So amortized cost method may, see, if I had taken a loan under accounting standards and that loan had some processing fee. So what I would do, I would charge off the processing fee to the P&L and book the liability at the full amount. But under your Ind AS 109, how do you do this? You will recognize the liability net of the processing fee, calculate the effective interest rate, and then you start building up the interest and making the payment until the liability turns to zero. Are you able to connect the dots? Yes?
Sir.
Yes. So we have a lot of things where the treatments are different. That is why, though this is the first accounting standard, Ind AS 101 or IFRS 1, it is always taken towards the end, because what is important is connecting the dots of what you people have already studied. You should be able to connect the dots, because by now, at least you should have a fair idea of what are the standards and how the treatment happens under that. Okay. Now, when we do a transition, if I have to do a perfect transition, if I have to do a perfect full-fledged transition, what I should do is I should recognize each category of assets, liabilities, incomes, expenses, contingent liabilities, etc. I should take that entirely under accounting standards, under Ind AS, right? Go back in time when these items were born. And on that day, I should apply the provisions of Ind AS, and then I should move forward and arrive at the value in today's terms and do the transition. तो आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा, हर एक आइटम के लिए you will have to check when did this actually originate. If I talk about investment in equity shares of another entity, so you will have to look at when it was purchased, and then you will have to determine the valuation, and then you will have to do the adjustments. So in all these cases, if Ind AS 101 was not there, आपको क्या करना पड़ता था? You would have to go back in time, apply Ind AS as if it was there right from the first day, and then once you do that, you will arrive at the value in today's terms and then do the transition entry. Acha. But sir, for every item, if I have to go back in time, tell me one thing, is it practical? Is it practical? Obviously, वो practical नहीं है. आप हर item के लिए, you cannot go back in time and do the adjustments. You need certain provisions that will make your life easy. You need certain clauses that will make the transition easy. And therefore, Ind AS 101 was introduced. The job of Ind AS 101 is to give certain exemptions, to give certain exemptions, to give certain benefits, to give certain exceptions, to give certain proxy or certain surrogate values for the transition period. For instance, we will cover all this, but for instance, property, plant and equipment. Ind AS 101 tells you can take the carrying amount on the date of transition as the cost for the purposes of Ind AS. समझ में आ गया? So you may have purchased the asset 10 years back. You may have purchased the asset 10 years back. But today's terms, whatever is its carrying value after depreciation, that you can take it as cost for the purposes of Ind AS 101. Is it okay? Yes. So in all these things, what Ind AS 101 strives to do is, boss, you proceed to transition. I will take care that you are not having much of difficulties. You're not having many difficulties in your transition. I will take care and give you certain exemptions, certain benefits, certain proxies, certain surrogate values, which you can use and progress with your transition. Did you understand the preface to Ind AS 101? इसका main reason क्या है? Did you understand? Yes? Yeah? So now, with this background, let us move on to our study material. Okay, let us move on to our study material. So objective of this Ind AS is what? To ensure that an entity's first Ind AS financials and the interim financial reports for the part of the period covered by those financial statements contain high quality information that is transparent for users and comparable, suitable starting point, and at a cost that does not exceed the benefits. Okay. So now we have certain definitions. We have certain definitions to come. Once we see these definitions, we'll then jump onto the special cases or transitory items. Okay. So now, first Ind AS financial statements. First Ind AS financial statements. The first annual financial statements in which an entity adopts Ind AS by an explicit and unreserved statement of compliance with Ind AS. So what is important is not only should it be the first financial statements, but there should be an explicit and unreserved statement of compliance with Ind AS. So whenever you see the transition, in the transition, there will be a specific statement which says that we have complied with all the requirements of the Indian accounting standards as prescribed. Is it okay? So when we give this unreserved statement of compliance with Ind AS, what does it mean? It means I have complied with all Ind AS. You will not say I complied with 1, I did not comply with 2, I did not comply with 5. You cannot say that. Your requirement should be to comply on a totality basis, to comply with on a totality basis. Okay. All right. So that takes care of your first Ind AS financial statements. Is it okay? Yes. समझ में आ गया? First Ind AS. All right. Now, first time adopter. The entity presenting the first Ind AS financial statements becomes the first time adopter. Okay, very simple. Does not need any explanation. Okay. Opening Ind AS balance sheet, an entity's balance sheet at the date of transition to Ind AS. Okay. And date of transition to Ind AS. Okay. So now let us understand date of transition to Ind AS. What does the definition tell us? The beginning of the earliest period for which an entity presents full comparative information under Ind AS in the first Ind AS financial statements. Okay. So now let us consider an entity. Acha. Ind AS transition. Tell me one thing. Is it something that happens over a period of time, or is it something that happens at a point in time? Transition जो है,
Sir, over a period of time.
over a period of time आप किस नजरिए से बोल रहे हैं?
सर जो रीस्टेटमेंट आप रीस्टेटमेंट के पर्पस से पूछ रहे हैं तो ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, और हम अगर थर्ड बैलेंस शीट के पर्सपेक्टिव से पूछ रहे हैं तो ओनली ओपनिंग बैलेंस, मतलब एट द पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम.
Yes. So basically, what is Ind AS transition is, it is always at a point in time. It is always at a point in time. What Monica has said applies over a period of time because I am applying it for the comparative periods also as well as the current period. But basically what happens is I am following accounting standards. From this period, I will transit to Ind AS. From this point, I will transit to Ind AS. So my transition date is always at a point in time. Transition date is at a point in time. So it becomes very important for us to understand ki bhai, what is my transition date? So let us suppose an entity is required to transit to Ind AS in the financial year 24-25. Okay, 24-25 mein it met the requirements and it was required to follow Ind AS for 31st March 2025 year ending. Okay, so tell me one thing. Year ending 31st March 2025. Will this become my transition date? Will this become my transition date? The first time Ind AS was required is for the financial year 24-25. So tell me one thing, is 31st March 2025 my transition date?
No, sir. 1 year before is
नहीं
the
होगा, नहीं होगा. Because no. Why? Because transition is for 2024-25 financial year, is for 24-25 financial year. I hope you are able to understand, Jeannie, right? Niranjan, hope you are able to follow. Okay, all right. So if 31st March 25 is not your transition date, can I say that 1st April 2024 is our transition date? Can I say 1st April 24 becomes my transition date?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Ideally, answer should be yes. Because, sir, Ind AS applicability happened in 24-25. So 1st April 24, you should have started applying Ind AS. So 1st April 24 should become your date of transition. Ideally, yes. Ideally, yes. But, acha, tell me one thing. Can I present only current period financials or should I give a comparative also?
Comparative also.
Comparative also.
Comparative भी देना पड़ेगा. तो in my financial statements, suppose कीजिए you are investors in the company and you are looking at the P&L. P&L is having 24-25 as per Ind AS. कंपैरेटिव देना है सर, तो 23-24 कंपैरेटिव जो है तो है. आई विल गिव इट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स. इज दिस going to make sense to you as an investor or analyst?
Yes, sir.
Will it make sense to you?
No, sir. P&L prospectus. Sorry, sir. हमने पर read नहीं
नहीं
किया.
होगा.
No,
वेरी
sir.
सिंपल, वेरी सिंपल. आप यहाँ पे लीज रेंट विल बी एक्सपेंस्ड इन द P&L. यस. Whereas under Ind AS, lease rent होगा ही नहीं. It will go as part of finance cost and amortization and depreciation. Yes. So that is one thing. So what am I going to compare between these two? मैं नहीं compare कर सकता. I cannot put the current year as Ind AS without restating the comparative. It does not make sense at all. So this also transition to Ind AS. Did you understand? Yes. Did you understand? So ideally, 1st April 2024 should have been my transition date, but it isn't. It is not. Because prior year comparison is needed. Prior year comparison is needed. Did you understand? Yes?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now, what becomes your transition date? Is 31st March 2024 your transition date? Or is 1st April 2023 your transition date?
So the 1st April 2023 is my transaction date.
1st April 2023 becomes your transition date. So if I now look at the definition, the beginning of the earliest period, in this case, my earliest period is what? 23-24. The beginning of the earliest period means 1st April 2023. Okay, so the beginning of the earliest period for which an entity presents full comparative information in first Ind AS financial statements. Did you understand? Yes. So my transition date is 1st April 2023. समझ में आ गया अपने को?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Monica, did you follow?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you are going in for an initial public offer, you have to give 5 years comparative balance sheets. Yes, 5 years comparative financial statements. Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So when you are giving 5 years comparative financials, what will be the transition period, transition date?
So 1 year before that,
1 year before or 5 years before?
तो 5 years का जो पीरियड है उस पीरियड के 1 साल पहले का, मतलब जो फर्स्ट पीरियड लाइक जैसे मैंने 2000 से स्टार्ट किया तो 1999 से उसका स्टार्ट हो जाएगा पीरियड.
99, you are going to give 5 years comparative for an IPO.
स्टार्टिंग 2000 टू 2005 का मैंने प्रोजेक्शन अगर बनाया तो मेरे लिए स्टार्टिंग से 1 साल पहले का जो पीरियड है वो मेरा
Yes. So you have to go back in time. 5 साल का balance sheet you have to restate in line with Ind AS and then make it comparable with the current year in which you are getting listed. Are you able to follow? Yes. तो जो 5 साल पहले का earliest period है, that should be taken as your transition date. Did you follow? Yes.
सर.
Everyone understood? So transition date is उतने time का, the earliest financials, what you are presenting, the beginning of that period becomes your transition date. Okay, all right. So that takes care of the first definition, that is transition date. Acha. Now, what happens if Ind AS 101 is not there? What happens if Ind AS 101 is not there? Now, okay. See, have you studied bills receivable discounting under Ind AS 109? Yes. आपने पढ़ा होगा bills receivable discounting? Yes. पढ़ा होगा आपने. I will assume that you have studied. Okay, because you would have studied. Okay. So let us take the case of bills receivable discounted. Acha. You remember in your 11th 12th standard bills of exchange करके आप पढ़ते थे? Yes.
Yes, sir.
जिसमें आप बिल ऑफ एक्सचेंज यू यूज टू ड्रॉ इट, राइट, एंड देन उसके बाद उसके जर्नल एंट्रीज पढ़ते थे, एंड देन इज पार्ट ऑफ द जर्नल एंट्रीज व्हाट यू यूज टू डू, यू यूज टू स्टडी समथिंग नोन एज discounting of bills receivable. Yes or no? So therefore, what you used to do when a bill was accepted by your customer, you would pass the entry bills receivable account debit to debtors. This bill you would go and give it to the bank for discounting. So bank would give you the money. It would deduct some amount towards discount and the bills receivable would get eliminated. Do you remember this? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Discounting of bills receivable. इसमें क्या हो रहा है? What is happening here? Bills receivable debit, bills receivable credit. Your bills receivable is getting eliminated. Yes. Tell me one thing. On the due date of the bill, if your debtor does not pay to the bank will collect the money from whom? From you or from that customer? बोलो यार. If on the due date the bill is not honored by your customer, then bank has given the money. Bank will say, I need my money back. Where it will go? Will it come to me or will it go to my customer? Bolo yaar, this is 11th, 12th standard.
पर बैंक तो हमारे पास ही आएगी ना.
Bank हमारे पास आएगी. Bank will come to me because bank will say, boss, I don't know from whom you have taken this bills receivable. I only know you because you are my customer. Now you have taken the money in advance. Now you have to pay me back. So tell me one thing. The obligation for paying this, I have taken a borrowing and then I am obligated to pay it. So can I say that the obligation has never left my head? Yes or no? Can I say that the obligation never really left my head? Bolo yaar. Whether I discount or don't discount, I am still obligated to pay the money to the bank. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So the obligation does not go away just because I discounted. At the same time, if the customer does not pay, is he still obligated to pay the money to me? Is he still obligated to pay the money after the bill gets dishonored?
Yes, sir.
Yes, bolo yaar. If the bill gets dishonored, he continues to remain my debtor. You
Yes.
cannot say उसने कागज का टुकड़ा देके साइन कर दिया तो आज से उसके सारे कर्जे मैंने माफ कर दिए. आप ऐसा नहीं कर सकते. He is liable to pay the money to you. So in effect, when you go for discounting the bill, two things remain sacrosanct. One is the debtor continues to remain liable to you. That means this bills receivable cannot become zero because it is still an asset that is having the potential to give you cash. So it becomes a financial asset. At the same time, you are still having an obligation to deliver cash to the bank regardless of whether the customer pays or not. Yes or no? And therefore, that continues to be a financial liability. So therefore, what Ind AS 109 tells you, you should recognize a bills receivable and continue to hold it because it is an instrument that delivers cash to you. At the same time, you will have to recognize a financial liability when you discount the bill because you are under an obligation to deliver the cash. Are you able to follow?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So therefore, अच्छा तो ये तो हो गया भाई Ind AS का provisions. But under your accounting standards, these bills receivable also would not be there, and you would definitely not be having the discounting liability. समझ में आ गया अपने को? Yes. Did you follow? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that is one thing which will come into existence. That is one thing which will come into existence. Okay. Now, let us suppose this is the thing that has happened on 31st March 2024. This is the thing that has happened on 31st March 2024. Now, when you are transitioning, suppose the transition date is 1st April 2024. So from 1st April 24, that is immediately next day, you will end up recognizing an asset as well as a liability. You will end up recognizing an asset as well as a liability. Did you understand? Yes. Did you understand? Bolo.
Sir, you have made the 1/4/24 as a transition date?
Yes.
Okay.
I am taking 1/4/2024 as the transition date.
Yes, sir.
31st March 24 को आपके पास बिल था. Yes. So did you understand?
Yes, sir.
All right. Monica, all clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is the problem. You have presented your numbers on 31st March 24 and अगले ही दिन you have to bring back something which you had eliminated. 31st March 24 you were under accounting standards. Accounting standard में आपने bills receivable दिखाया, bills receivable knock off कर दिया. So there is no bills receivable. But immediately next day when you are transitioning, then you will have the bills receivable again getting born, और बिल्स रिसीवेबल के साथ साथ उसका जुड़वा भाई भी पैदा हो जाएगा जिसको हम बोलेंगे फाइनेंशियल लायबिलिटी. Did you understand? Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
these kind of things, how do I deal with it, is what is given under Ind AS 101. Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. Okay. So that takes care of the first point. Now, when we do a transition, there are four important things that happen. There are four important things you have to keep in mind. So from accounting standards to Ind AS, four things happen. First one, de-recognize items shown in Ind AS but not permitted in de-recognize items shown in AS but not permitted in Ind AS. Obviously, when you are moving from AS to Ind AS, what was required to be recognized under AS but not under Ind AS, you will have to de-recognize that. Sir, example, you remember there was something known as proposed dividend under accounting standard 4? Yes? आपको
Yes.
याद है कुछ? Yes. अच्छा, एक अमेंडमेंट आया, बट बिफोर दैट अमेंडमेंट आप लोग क्या करते थे? Proposed dividend, you would make a provision in your balance sheet. Yes, you would make a provision in your balance sheet. Did you understand? आपको याद है before the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Now, Ind AS 10, Ind AS, what it tells, a liability for proposed dividend. A liability for proposed dividend arises. A liability for proposed dividend arises if we are having a shareholder's approval for that. On the date my balance sheet gets signed, is there a shareholder's approval for the dividend? Answer is no. It will get adopted at the annual general meeting. उससे पहले आपका audit financial सब बन के ready हो गया है. Right? So when you are adopting the accounts, that time the financials are already signed off. So you cannot have that proposed dividend liability when you are preparing your financials. So because there is no obligation to deliver cash. Obligation to deliver cash arises when shareholders have approved the issuance of dividend, which will happen at the annual general meeting. Did you understand? So therefore, I may have recognized a proposed dividend liability under your accounting standards, but I will not recognize it under your Ind AS. So you will have to de-recognize it. Did you understand? Yes. Did you follow?
Yes, yes, sir.
Perfect. Moving on to the next one. Second. Reclassification. Acha. Preference shares. Where did you show it in your accounting standards?
Equity part में.
Equity. These are redeemable preference shares. Where do you show them under Ind AS?
Equity.
बताइए.
Liability part, no, sir.
Liability part. That's right, Gyanendra. That's right. You will show it as part of your liability. Why? Because it represents an obligation to deliver cash. याद है ना? These are the terms used in Ind AS 109. आप इतना
Yes,
मतलब
sir.
you
Yes,
don't
sir.
have to be sir क्या बता रहे हैं, कौन से दुनिया का अंग्रेजी बोल रहे हैं, right?
याद
This
है.
is something you have studied. Okay, an obligation to deliver cash is a financial liability. So therefore, The preference share capital, so to speak, is actually nothing but an obligation to deliver cash. And therefore, आप क्या करोगे? You will recognize it as a financial liability. So you will reclassify it from equity share capital or shareholders funds to liabilities, to non-current liabilities, if of course it is payable after 12 months. Did you follow? So example, preference share capital reclassified to non-current liabilities. Obviously, I am assuming that this is after 12 months. This is payable after 12 months from the reporting date. Okay. Now, convertibles. आपने पढ़ा होगा लाइफ में, कुछ पढ़े ना पढ़े, फाइनेंशियल इंस्ट्रूमेंट में कन्वर्टिबल तो डेफिनेटली याद होगा आपको, राइट? Convertible debentures. Where would you show under accounting standards?
In the liability side, debenture part.
Yes, you would show it in your liabilities side under accounting standards. But a convertible debenture, how do you show it under Ind AS? बोलो यार.
Part of equity, sir, because it will convert later on.
Not part of equity. I'm talking about convertible means there is an option to pay cash also. There is an option to go for equity also. So you will do a split accounting. If you remember, you will take the market rate of interest, discount it, and then you will do a amortization. So whatever is your present value will go in the liability, balancing figure will go and sit as equity, right? So second one is convertible debentures. Convertible debentures. Okay. Now, another example. Investment property. Do you remember anything related to investment property under accounting standards?
Yes,
ऐसा
sir.
कुछ था क्या? Investment property?
It is part of PPE in the accounting standard.
It is part of property, plant and equipment. कुछ नया नहीं था उसमें. But here, do we have a separate presentation requirement for investment property?
Yes, sir.
Yes. You will show it as a separate line item. You will obviously follow the cost model adjusted for depreciation, but you will also disclose the fair value of that for the purposes of Ind AS. Did you follow? So investment property. Investment property. अच्छा, ऐसा कुछ है जो आपने नहीं पढ़ा है इसमें? Yes, you would have studied all these items. Yes. Next one. Non-current assets held for sale. कौन सा standard? Ind AS 105. Did you show it separately under accounting standards, sir? ऐसा कोई standard था ही नहीं वहां पे, right? And therefore it would be part of your regular assets. But here I am having non-current assets held for sale. Ind AS 105. Ind AS 105. Are we able to follow?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So these are certain reclassification adjustments that you will end up doing. These are certain classification adjustments that you will end up doing. Third one will be an opposite of the first one. Will be an opposite of the first one. Recognize items not shown in AS but required to be shown in Ind AS, but required to be shown in Ind AS. Sir, for example, we saw that bills receivable discounted. We have to show the liability. That liability was not shown under your accounting standard. The bills receivable was nullified, but a liability was not shown separately. and therefore that got nullified, and in its place we are having the item required to be disclosed, computed, and presented under your Ind AS financials. Are we able to follow?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then next one. Last one. Remeasurement adjustments. अच्छा. Remeasurement adjustments क्या होता है? Where there is a different measurement that is required, where there is a different measurement basis that is required, you will follow the revised basis under accounting, under Ind AS. For example, investment in equity. You can show that as cost under accounting standard 13, but under your Ind AS 109, it must compulsorily be fair value. Is it okay? Yes, it must compulsorily be fair value. So that difference जो है, that becomes your transition adjustment. Did you follow?
Yes, sir.
Yes. तो ये चार चीजें होनी ही होनी है. Okay?
So one more thing now,
हम्म.
सर, जो करंट एसेट्स एंड करंट लायबिलिटी की जो डेफिनेशन है चेंज हो गई, ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल्स पे बेस्ड हो गई अभी न्यू इंडियाज में, एंड
Okay.
वो इन चारों में से कहाँ फॉल करेगी?
See, I think there is an option also which is given, right? Where if you cannot determine the operating cycle, it is assumed to be 12 months, right? आपको
Yes,
याद
sir.
है?
Yes, sir.
That option is also given. So in that case, most of the entities fall within this 12 months bracket and proceed. So there is no change in that because of the simple reason that we had a similar definition under Schedule 3 to the Companies Act, if you remember, right?
Yes, sir.
Schedule 3 to the Companies Act में we were already following the working capital cycle model for our financial reporting, or we would take 12 months as the basis for current and non-current classification. तो वही चलेगा हमारा, उसमें तो कोई change नहीं होगा. Is it okay? Yes?
Okay, sir.
All right. So that takes care of your four things. ये चार चीजें करो, आपका ट्रांजिशन कंप्लीट हो जाएगा. Yes? So that's it. Your Ind AS 101 is over. Okay? Now, what is the meaning of Ind AS 101 transition standard? It gives proxies. It gives substitute values. It seeks to make your life easier. So basically, you have the requirements of the standard under the respective Ind ASs. Ind AS 101 will say what you should not do as per those standards. समझ में आ रहा है? Ind AS 101 is deviating from the guidelines given in those standards. Why? Because this is a one-time modification. ये one day match की तरह है. आप एक बार खेलो, खत्म हो गया. फिर that match will never come back to you. Okay, then you will only end up doing a test match. जहां पे every year on year you will start rolling out your Ind AS financials. But until then, this becomes only a one-time activity. This is only a one-time activity, and therefore Ind AS 101 deviates from the requirements of certain standards and gives you the freedom to opt for a substitute value, since that substitute is going to simplify your results in the future. Is it okay? Yes? Yes? All right. So just give me a minute. Yeah. So it gives deemed cost, it gives certain substitutes. So that is how Ind AS seeks to simplify your work. Okay. Now, for instance, property, plant, and equipment. Ind AS 101 gives you three options. You can either go for the net carrying value on the date of transition as the deemed cost and then do your transition. इसमें it is the least amount of effort. जो WDV है, that becomes your cost for Ind AS. Second option is you can do a retrospective working. That asset is available right from the beginning. So you will have to calculate the adjustments, movements, etc. in line with Ind AS and arrive at the value on the date of transition and take that value for the purposes of transition. Okay. Or last item, you can take the fair value on the date of transition. You can take the fair value on the date of transition and move it to your Ind AS. Is it okay? Did you understand? Yeah. All right. So we understood the objective of Ind AS 101. अच्छा, ये जो भी remeasurements है, wherever I have remeasurements, reclassification, or recognition, see, all these are impacting one side of the
Asset and liability.
transaction. It can either be a debit or it can be a credit. The second effect कहाँ पे जाएगा? Where will the second effect go on account of transition? Second effect, should I take it to the P&L or should I take it to retained earnings?
Retained earning.
You will obviously take it to retained earnings because profits आप कमाते हो from your operations. You will not make a profit from transitioning to Ind AS. So जो भी remeasurement impacts है, whatever is your remeasurement, reclassification, transition, इनका जो भी impacts है, the impact of that will go into your retained earnings. Are we okay with this? Are we okay with this?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
All right. Okay. Now, let us come on to our items. Let us come on to our items. Okay. Now the standard actually starts. Okay. Something that will be of interest to you. Abhi tak jo kiya, that was only an introduction. Okay. So now we move on to specific transitory items. Okay. So first one, let us start off with ESOPs. Let us start off with ESOPs. Okay. We take three cases. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Date of transition 1/4/2020. Grant date 30. Vesting period 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Exercise period 1 year, 5 years, 4 years. Okay. Now, these are the three cases. Acha. I hope you remember this term. I hope you remember these terms, right? Date of transition याद है अपने को? Yes, आज ही पढ़ा है. Grant date, do you remember? Yes.
Yes.
You remember long ago we had, I think we had only studied Ind AS 102, right? Yes. Monica, Ginny, हम ही
Yes.
ने पढ़ा था. Yes. I hope you
Yes, sir.
remember. Yes. All right. So grant date, you should know what is the grant date. Vesting period आपको याद होगा. Exercise period also you would be aware of. I think you would be aware of. Okay. Now, transition date is 1/4/2020. I have taken 3 independent cases. Let us first understand हो क्या रहा है ये 3 cases में. And then we will come to the treatment. Okay. Now, case 1. Grant date 1/4/2013. Vesting period is 3 years. So 13-14, 14-15, 15-16. 31st March 16. उसके 1 साल तक आप एक्सरसाइज कर सकते हो. So 31st March 17. So your options, including the vesting and the exercise period, has a life of how many years? 4 years. Yes. 3 years vesting, 1 year exercise, total 4 years. Now, from 1/4/13, 4 years means 31st March 2017. I am transitioning on 31st March, on 1st April 2020. So tell me one thing. Are these options outstanding?
No, sir.
Girls?
Sir, options, date, sir, I think कि beginning of the year, beginning of the period से start होता है, like आपने जहाँ तक पढ़ाया था.
आप याद रखो 31st March 2014 you will pass the entry EBE account debit to stock options outstanding. याद है?
Yes, sir.
Or SBP reserve. You
Yes,
will
sir.
do this for 3 years.
Yes,
31st
sir.
March 15, 31st March 16. Correct?
Yes, sir.
बाद में 31st March 17 को आप क्या करोगे? You will get the money on exercise.
हाँ.
You will issue equity share capital. हो सकता है there will be a premium also. Yes.
Yes, sir.
And you are issuing it at a discount because it is a stock option. So जो excess है वो कहाँ से आएगा? यहाँ से तो आएगा.
SPP reserves.
हाँ. SBP reserve under Ind AS 102. Stock option outstanding under accounting standards. Okay. It is
Yes,
a
sir.
reserve under Ind AS. It is a liability under accounting standards. Okay. So ultimately, सारे अगर options कुछ lapse हो गए, then I would take it to the P&L. I would take it to the P&L or to the reserves. Okay. So what is happening? Ultimately, stock option outstanding gets knocked off. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
कौन सी डेट को होगा ये? This happens on 31st March 2017. मतलब tell me, is this stock option outstanding alive on 1st April 2020?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
नहीं है. तो आप गड़े मुर्दे उखाड़ के मत डालिए Ind AS 101 में. जो कहानी खत्म हो गई वो खत्म हो गई. So therefore, the first case क्या बोलता है? The first case, what does it tell? Just a second. The first case is no options outstanding. Therefore, will it have any transition impact? Will it have any transition
No, sir.
impact?
No, sir.
बोलो यार, नहीं होगा. Therefore, no impact on transition. See, I can either give you notes एंड मैं बोलूंगा इसको याद कर लो, खत्म हो जाएगा, राइट? नहीं तो let us understand the whole process, then you only will prepare the notes, you will only help me to prepare the notes, and side by side you will also get ready. Okay, so no options outstanding and therefore no impact on transition. Acha, second case बताइए. So the whole point of ESOP is this स्टॉक ऑप्शन आउटस्टैंडिंग अकाउंट, क्योंकि यही एक आउटस्टैंडिंग चीज है जो बैलेंस शीट में बचा है, राइट? एंड देयरफॉर ओनली दिस इज व्हाट वी विल हैव टू सी फॉर द पर्पसेस ऑफ ट्रांजिशन. ओके, कमिंग टू द सेकंड केस, आप बताइए व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन द सेकंड केस.
Second case is also there is no option outstanding, sir. There is
बी केयरफुल.
सर
excess
आउटस्टैंडिंग है ना, 5 इयर्स का वेस्टिंग एक्सरसाइज पीरियड रिमेनिंग है,
4
यस,
वो
years.
लाइबिलिटी अभी हमारे अकाउंट मतलब बुक्स में शो कर रही है.
so what would happen is 1st April 2013 ऑप्शंस वर ग्रांटेड. आपने ऑप्शंस दे दिए एम्प्लॉयज को, एम्प्लॉयज ऐसे खड़े हैं, भाई ऑप्शन दे दो हमको दे दो, तो 1st April को आपने दे दिया ऑप्शन. दे विल वर्क फॉर 5 years. तो 5 years आप एक ही एंट्री बार बार पास करोगे. कौन सा? ईबी एक्सपेंस अकाउंट डेबिट टू स्टॉक ऑप्शन आउटस्टैंडिंग, ईबी एक्सपेंस अकाउंट डेबिट टू स्टॉक ऑप्शन आउटस्टैंडिंग, ईबी एक्सपेंस अकाउंट डेबिट टू स्टॉक ऑप्शन आउटस्टैंडिंग. यू विल पास दिस फॉर 5 years. So 31st March 2018 को you will have a cumulative balance of your stock option outstanding account. यहां तक सबको समझ में आ गया?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
यस सर.
Now let us move to the next one. I then come to exercise period. अभी exercise period कितना टाइम है?
5 years.
Another 5 years. So therefore case 2 looks something like this. This is my vesting period. This is my exercise period. 1st April 13, 1st April 18, 1st April 23. And in between this, I am having my transition. 1st April 20, date of transition. Okay. अभी जरा सोच के बताओ, on the date of transition, कौन सा चीज अभी भी जिंदा है? What item is still alive? Stock option outstanding will still be alive? Yes or
यस
no?
सर. यस
Yes,
सर.
sir.
Obviously, it will still be alive if it is not fully exercised. अगर fully exercise हो गया तो stock option outstanding होगा ही नहीं.
Yes, sir.
But if it is not fully exercised, by 5 साल का टाइम है, तो 5 साल में 2 ही साल बीत गए, 3 साल तो अभी भी बाकी है. So therefore, on your date of transition, options are available for exercising. But can I say that these options are completely vested? बोलो यार.
Yes, sir. Vesting period is completely
Over. Vesting period is completed. Vesting period is over. So can I say that on the date of transition, options are vested, but could be outstanding, since exercise period is still open. Since exercise period is still open. Are we able to understand? Yes.
यस सर.
Matlab, can I say that EBE expense is fully booked before the transition date?
यस सर.
Yes. Yes. Now, accounting standards. याद करो, थोड़ा अपने दिमाग पे जोर लगाओ. Put a little bit of effort in your minds. Tell me one thing. On the grant date under Ind AS 102 मैं किस वैल्यू पे उसको अकाउंट करता था? EBE expense account debit to stock options outstanding. Under Ind AS, I would pass this entry at which value? याद करो, it would be at the fair value on the grant date.
Yes, sir.
सबको याद है? जीनी, do you
Yes, sir.
remember?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
अच्छा, गाइडेंस नोट जो आपने पढ़ा है, the guidance note that you have studied, and which value would you use for booking employee benefit expense? This is not Ind AS, this is accounting standards or the previous regime. Previous regime में I used to do the accounting based on fair value नहीं होता था वो. That would be something known as intrinsic value. That would be something known as intrinsic value. Do you remember?
Yes, sir.
Expense booked in AS regime based on intrinsic value. And what is your intrinsic value? This is nothing but difference between market price 100,
Value derived
exercise
from
price 60. Therefore, intrinsic value would be 40. And this would be the basis for booking my employee benefit expenses. Did you understand? Do you recollect this?
Yes, sir.
कुछ ऐसा करते थे हम. Why would I do the accounting based on intrinsic value? Because the entity, the guidance note thought that, look, you are giving something worth 100 rupees only for 60 rupees. That means the company is giving a benefit of 40 rupees. So therefore book the expense at 40. But the problem with intrinsic value is that intrinsic value is the value on today's date. आज के तारीख में उसका क्या value है? Going forward, market values can undergo a change, right? So will I change the valuation? Answer is no. So intrinsic value is not a forward-looking value, whereas the fair value on the grant date is more of a forward-looking value. It anticipates the movement in prices and then anticipates the variables, and then it ends up giving you the valuation. Okay, and ends up giving
So
you.
your voice starting is stuck.
Hello, is it audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so intrinsic value is a value at a point in time. It is not a futuristic value, whereas fair value is a futuristic value. It computes all possible movements, fluctuations, जो भी होता है होगा in the future, and then it gives you the fair value on the date of grant. So therefore, the fair value was adopted. So now there is a conflict. There is a conflict. क्या conflict है? Stock option outstanding account is having a balance based on intrinsic value. समझ में आ रहा है अपने को? Yes?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
But
Yes, sir.
you are transitioning to Ind AS. And when you are transitioning to Ind AS, you should take the fair value. It should be at fair value. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So here under AS, it is at intrinsic value. But what is the requirement of Ind AS? At
Fair
fair
value.
value. So when I transition from AS to Ind AS, should I do a restatement? Should I do a restatement of my stock option outstanding to the fair value?
Yes, sir.
Ideally, करना चाहिए. Ideally, you have to do it. Yes, but यहाँ पे Ind AS gives you a relief. याद करो, और मैं I mean always remember, reliefs are voluntary, exemptions are voluntary, benefits are voluntary. आपके पास इतना टाइम है कि I want to do a full-fledged transition perfectly, then don't take any of the benefits. Ind AS 101 tells, go ahead, no problem. But suppose you want to take the benefits, you can take the benefits. So one thing is, when I'm moving from AS to Ind AS, for the second category, where options are vested but yet to be exercised, those options I can either do a restatement to the fair value on the grant date. This is what I would have done even if 101 was not there. Or the second relief. अभी आप बताओ relief क्या होगा? You only tell me what will be the relief. Yes? आपको पता है करना क्या है? Yes? You know what you have to do if you have to do a full-fledged transition. Relief अगर देना है, if the standard wants to give you a relief, come on यार, tell me what will be the relief. दो ही तो value है, एक intrinsic value, one is fair value. The actual transition requires you to move from intrinsic value to fair value.
सर
But
डिफरेंस प्रोवाइड कर देंगे और
Ind AS 101 gives you the relief that take the carrying amount on the date of transition into your Ind AS. It doesn't matter whether it is intrinsic value or fair value or whatever it is. You will straight away take that value into your current Ind AS regime. Did you follow? So whatever is appearing here, just move it into Ind AS. Just move it into Ind AS. Did you understand? Now you will have a question, sir, but ये तो Ind AS 102 के against हो गया. This is not in line with Ind AS 102. Why? Because this is at intrinsic value and this is not at fair value. All said and done, options are vested or yet to vest?
Vested, sir.
Vested. So expenses are already booked in the earlier regime. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Expenses are already booked in the earlier regime. Today's date, are you going to book further expenses?
No, sir.
No, sir.
नो
No. यहाँ पे तो only exercise is going to happen. Exercise is going to happen means what will happen? Money will come in the bank account. You will adjust stock option outstanding and you will credit it with the equity shares that you are giving. So in effect, are you impacting the current period's profit and loss account by virtue of this plan which is yet in force as far as the exercise period is concerned?
No, sir.
No. And that is why Ind AS 101 has given you this relief. That आगे चल के P&L में nothing is going to come. So you can take the existing AS value into your Ind AS. Did you understand? Yes.
यस सर
Gyanendra, did you follow? Niranjan, did you follow? Yes. All clear? Hope it's all clear. Okay. All right. Fine. Coming to the third scenario. Now, third scenario, story looks something like this. One 430. 1/4/23, 1/4/27. This is your vesting period. This is your exercise period. This is your transition period. 1/4/20. Tell me, what is happening in third case? What is happening in the third case?
The vesting period is also after transition date, so we have to book the expenditure also in the after any Ind AS adopt करने के sorry
हाँ जी, सही कह रहे हैं
इंड
आप।
एएस में आने के बाद भी आपको एक्सपेंस बुक करना पड़ेगा, जिससे हमारा प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस भी अफेक्ट होगा।
दैट्स इट। सो
सर बट
बेसिकली
जो डिफरेंस अमाउंट है उसको हम आगे के ईयर में मतलब प्रपोर्शनेटली डिवाइड करके ले लेंगे, या ऐसा कुछ भी
रुको
होगा
रुको
क्या?
रुको, अभी उतना मत आगे बढ़ो, धीरे से। So in this case, my date of transition is in the vesting period. Okay. So as Jeannie rightly said, this is a case where even after I transit, I will end up getting my employee benefit expenses getting booked. मतलब transition के बाद भी my P&L is going to get impacted. My P&L is going to get impacted. So now, should there be a transition relief? You tell me, should there be a transition relief? Because now you are hitting the Ind AS P&L. So now you tell me, should there be a transition relief or should you go on full value basis?
No transition relief, sir.
No transition relief should come. No transition relief should come. That means what? These 7 years, 1/4/2013 to 1/4/2020, whatever is booked in this 7 years, these 7 years also you will end up taking it at fair value. You will do a restatement. You will do a restatement. And from 1st April 20 to 1st April 23, you will actually book at fair value. You will actually book at fair value. Sir, इसका मतलब we have to go back in time. 1st April 2010 में जाके fair value ढूंढना पड़ेगा. हाँ जी, you have to go back in time and find out the fair value अच्छा, but sir, if I am unable to find the fair value, then whatever is the best available value, you will restate it to that fair value. Did you understand? Yes.
Yes.
Anybody has any doubts here? Yes? No? No
सर
doubts.
एक्चुअली ये स्टेप 3 से मोर क्लियर हो गया कि अभी क्या होने वाला।
Yes. So, very simple. Case 1, option outstanding was not there. So, therefore, nothing will happen in the transition. Step 2, vesting period is over. In the exercise period, you have transitioned to Ind AS. So, if you want academic interest के लिए, the standard will tell you, go ahead, restate it to fair value. But since it is not having any impact in the P&L, the standard gives you a transitionary relief saying that whatever is the previous gap carrying value of stock option outstanding account, you can straight away bring it forward into the SBP reserve account. You can straight away bring it into the SBP reserve account. Did you understand? Number 2. Number 3, the transition date is during the vesting period. Since this is the period where you are having your hits to the P&L, you clearly cannot have any transition relief. You will have to do a restatement based on the difference between the intrinsic value and the fair value on the original grant date. If you are unable to find the fair value on the original grant date, then you will have to find out the fair value, the best available value, whatever is there. Did you understand? Yes.
यस सर।
Monica, सब clear है?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. So that takes care of. So if I have to codify it, ESOP, I'm having two categories: vested options, unvested options. Vested options continue previous gap value or fair value. If information is available. Unvested options, this is fair value Ind AS 102. Are you able to understand? Yes? Pure? This would typically be intrinsic value based on market price on grant date. Okay. This would be based on expected market price. Are you able to follow?
सर अगर क्वेश्चन में अगर इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं दिया होगा ये वेस्टेड ऑप्शन से रिलेटेड, तो हमें यानी गैप का जो वैल्यू है इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू उसी को अज्यूम करना होगा.
You can. You
Oh.
can. Okay.
ओके सर.
But clearly mention alternative is also available. Okay.
ओके सर.
आप जितना अपना ज्ञान पेपर में दिखाओगे उतना नंबर मिलेगा आपको. That is the sum total of any paper that you are answering. Okay.
यस
Please freely exhibit your knowledge. Okay.
सर. ओके सर.
All right. Option 1, obviously I have not written because option 1 is vested, exercised, kahani khatam ho gaya. So it will not exist. Okay. Anybody has any doubt here?
No, sir.
Now, let us look at one of the questions. Okay. X Limited is a first-time adopter of Ind AS. The date of transition is 1st April 20X1. It has given 200 stock options to its employees. Out of this, 75 options have vested on 30th November. The remaining 125 will vest on 30th November 20X1. Are we able to understand the question? So 75 is vested pending exercise. 125 is unvested. So 125 जो unvested है, we will have to move it based on fair value. Whereas the 75 options vested hai, we have two options. Continue with previous gap value or you restate to fair value at the grant date. Are we able to understand? Yes. Sure.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that takes care of this part. Okay. Now, let us move on to the next one. Illustration 7 is done. Now, we come to the next part, which is an interesting one. Okay. Second, Forex Okay, forex. Okay. All of you have passed intermediate and come here. Yes. So you would have studied AS 11. Yes. If you
Yes,
have
sir.
studied AS 11, you would have studied para 46 and 46A. पढ़ा है?
Yes,
Yes.
sir, पढ़ा.
Yes, sir,
सुना
पढ़ा
है? चलो छोड़ो, पढ़ा है नहीं पढ़ा छोड़ो. So, have
Sir,
you heard of these paras?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
अच्छा, hearing is enough. Okay. जो पढ़ा है, I will run you through that. Okay. There are these two paras, 46 and 46A, that came in. Why did these paras come in? These paras came somewhere in 2010, 2011. Okay. What had happened was there was a huge fluctuation in exchange rates in 2010, 2011. There was a lot of bloodbath that happened on the currency markets. So now what has happened is entities had items, monetary items sitting in their balance sheets, monetary foreign currency items. Now, because of these violent movements in the currency exchange rates, it was giving a very huge hit to their P&L. बहुत ज़्यादा hit होता था. And therefore, the companies went to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and said that, look, we agree that the standard requires us to restate to the closing market rates, but just look at the manner in which the exchange rates are fluctuating. If that be the case, it is not practical for us to take such huge hits in the P&L, because this is something which is beyond our control. See, उस time पे क्या था? You did not have something like an other comprehensive income, जहाँ पे as a measure, as an interim measure, you could park it in OCI. Everything would go and hit your P&L. So companies said, we cannot take such monstrous hits in our P&L. Instead, you give us an option to defer this. We will accumulate it. हम मना नहीं कर रहे P&L में नहीं लेंगे. We will accumulate it and we will defer it. We will defer it over the life. We will defer it over the life. So in this regard, we had two paras, para 46 and para 46A. One pertaining to a monetary loan that is taken for a depreciable asset, and the other is a general loan. And the other is a general loan that was taken, which is not mapped to a particular asset, Okay. So, are you able to recollect something? Yes. So, AS 19, para 46, 46A dealt with forex gain or loss on long-term loans, which is basically a monetary item. Now, all entities went to the government saying that we have very violent exchange fluctuations. Please kuch karo. So entity gave two options. See, a benefit is always option. So I had option one. Tell me one thing. AS 11, monetary items, when you used to do a restatement, where would you take the impact? Would it go to retained earnings or would it go to P&L?
In the P&L, sir, monetary item.
It would go to the P&L. So option one was forex gain or loss, take it to the P&L. Booked in P&L account. This is what is the regular treatment that you used to do. So the Ministry of Corporate Affairs did not make it mandatory to avail this exemption. It said those companies who want to continue with option 1 can continue booking the gain or loss in the P&L. Or second case, I have option 2. अच्छा, but एक बार मैंने कमिट कर दिया कि मैं ऑप्शन 2 में जाऊंगा. It is an irrevocable choice. The moment I commit that I will go for option 2, it becomes an irrevocable choice. It becomes an irrevocable choice. Okay. Now, what do you mean by irrevocable choice? That means you cannot ever in the future, in respect of this monetary loan, ever book your gain or loss in the P&L. So option 2, this is basically your para 46A. What happens? So this treatment is split into 2 parts. One is general loan and the other is for a depreciable asset. Depreciable asset, what would I do with forex fluctuation? Adjust forex gain or loss in property, plant, equipment. That is capitalized to fixed assets. Do you remember this? Do
Yes.
you guys remember this?
Yes, sir.
We would take the foreign currency fluctuation, capitalize it in the value of assets, and then I would take it as a depreciation. Okay. General loan के केस में क्या होता था? Accumulate forex gain or loss in, ये याद रहे आपको? FCMITDA, foreign currency monetary item translation difference account. Do you remember this?
Yes, sir.
कभी तो सुना होगा.
सर सुना है, याद भी है.
अच्छा. So what would happen here? Defer the gain or loss over the tenure of the loan instead of hit in year 1 to P&L. Instead of hit in year 1 to P&L. Are we able to understand? Yes.
Yes, sir.
अच्छा. सर अभी जो हमने पढ़ा ना, this is not Ind AS, this is AS.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ये Ind AS नहीं है. Ind AS 21 भी unfortunately I only taught you. Okay. आप बताओ Ind AS 21 में this option is there?
No, sir.
मैंने कौन सा भी इतना सारा पैरा पढ़ाया, कहीं पर भी you look at my presentation, this type of option is not there. So Ind AS or IFRS has no similar clause. Has no similar clause. So what Ind AS 21 tells you? Take to P&L only. Take to P&L only. तो सर हम फटाफट कर देंगे ना, उसमें क्या है, जो भी accumulated है, whatever is accumulated in asset or HTMI/TDA, we will move it to retained earnings and going forward, let us take it to the P&L. इतना आसान नहीं है. It's not possible. Why? Because this is an irrevocable choice. This is an irrevocable choice. When you took this, you have given an undertaking that come what may, I will not move it to the P&L. I will not move it to the P&L. But now your
सर वॉइस बार बार ब्रेक हो रही है.
अच्छा, see, this is an irrevocable choice. So when you availed para 46A option, you committed that come what may, this forex fluctuation, I will not take it to the P&L. I will add it to the loan or the capital asset and amortize or depreciate. Are you able to follow? Yes.
Yes, sir.
But now Ind AS 21 gives you only the option of booking in the P&L. So now, if I have to do a transition, it becomes a conflict. If I have to do a transition, it becomes a conflict. And therefore, what is the transitionary policy? What is the transitionary requirement? Okay. What is the transition requirement? On the existing loan, ये वाली बात कर रहे हैं. On the existing loan, if FCMI TDA is availed, if FCMI TD account is availed, then you have two options available with you. Either continue to accumulate the gains or losses in FCMI TD account on transition date and even thereafter. Okay. So in this case, transition. Existing loan with FCMI TDA option. With FCMI TDA option. Yes. Continue accumulating gains losses in FCMI TDA. Are you able to understand? Though there is an option, though there is no option, I am giving this option. So this is a carve out. Carve out from IFRS. So existing loan with FCMI TDA option, continue to accumulate it or move to P&L. Move to P&L. Move the gains or losses to the P&L. Are you able to understand? Yes. बोलो.
यस सर, यानी कि यहाँ पर हम जो द इररिवोकेबल चॉइस
आप कंटिन्यू करो उसको.
यस हाँ यस सर.
That is one option which is available. Or second option, don't continue that. You can always say, sir, that was the earlier accounting policy. Now we are following Ind AS. So now under Ind AS 21, I will move it to the PN.
Yes,
I
sir.
will move it to the PN. Are you able to follow?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, let us look at this. Forex gain or loss. Option 2. Under previous gap, existing loan, new loan, or option 1, under previous cap, gain or loss to P&L. Okay. Now, if there is an existing loan, I can go for FCMI TDA accumulation. FCMI TDA accumulation. This is the first option. Or you can come under Ind AS 21, P&L. Over balance tenure. Acha, new loan after date of transition. After date of transition. Acha, transition के बाद I have taken a foreign currency loan. Should I go for FCMI TDA account or should I just follow Ind AS 21?
Ind AS 21, sir.
Follow Ind AS 21 because now the transition is over. Okay. So Ind AS 21 only. No FCMI TDA choice. Are you able to follow? So that means the gain or loss goes to the P&L. Yes. बोलो यार.
Yes, sir.
All right. So if I look at previous gap, Ind AS. Okay. So suppose previous gap, I was following option 1. That means I used to take my differences to the P&L. Can I continue to follow option 2? Or rather, can I continue to follow option 1 from Ind AS transition and onwards?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Allow. Next. Option 2, you were following. That is parking it in cost of asset or deferring over life of the loan. So I have option 2. After transition, can I continue in option 2? Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Option 2 to option 2. Is it allowed? Allowed. Did you follow?
Yes, sir.
Acha. Option 1 to option 2. I was taking it to the P&L earlier. Now, after transition, I want to do FCMI TDA or capitalize. Can I do that?
No, sir.
Not allowed.
Not allowed. Option 2 to option 1. Option 2 to option 1. Is it allowed?
No, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. It is allowed. Okay? Yes. Any doubts? Jeannie, Monica, Gyanendra,
No, sir.
No, sir.
Clear, sir.
all clear? अच्छा ब्रेक चाहिए?
Yes, sir. Sir, 10, yes, sir.
10 मिनट ठीक है 9 बजे बैठते हैं फिर से ओके विल
Yes, sir.
बीन एट 9 ओके
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
part of forex gain or loss, where we talked about para 4646A, where we had the exemption availed to take it in the loan value or in the value of the asset and amortize it or defer it over the tenure of the asset or the loan respectively. Ind AS 21 always requires you to take it to the P&L. So on the transition date, you are basically having an option. So if you are already under the P&L option, you can continue under P&L. So option 1 to option 1 is allowed. Option 2, you are under the deferring and accumulation, and you want to remain in option 2. This is the carve out specifically allowed in Ind AS 101. You are in option 1 and you want to avail the benefit of option 2. It is not allowed. You are in option 2 and you want to come to option 1. That is, you are regularizing by coming into option 1. That is allowed. Okay. That is the overall picture as far as para 4646A is concerned. Now coming to the next one, that is FCTR. You remember FCTR? Yes. Created under integral, non-integral operations under Ind AS, sorry, not Ind AS, under AS 11. Do you recollect this?
Foreign currency transaction reserves है.
Yes. ये हम बनाते थे for non-integral operations, created specially in non-integral operations. Now, in Ind AS 21, we have what is known as a functional currency. I think you recollect what is the functional currency. Okay, where all the currency in which the business decisions are taken, that typically is your functional currency. Now, you are creating specially the FCTR for non-integral operations, but under the functional currency, all these items have to be restated. All these items have to be restated. So therefore, two options: restate FCTR in functional currency or reset FCTR to 0. Do not continue previous gap value. Do not continue previous gap value. Okay. So that is quite specific. That is quite specific. Okay. So if I want to have FCTR, I will have to restate it used in the functional currency based on Ind AS 21 requirements, or you just make it 0 and move it to retainer and then start afresh. So that is the treatment as far as FCTR is concerned. That is the treatment as far as FCTR is concerned. Are we okay with this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So ये हो गया my story on foreign currency items. Our discussion on foreign currency items. Okay. So now basis this, let us look at a couple of questions. Okay. Are you guys able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So Y Limited is a first-time adopter of Ind AS. The date of transition is 1st April 20x5. On 1st April 20x1, that is prior to transition, it obtained a 7-year $100,000 loan. It has been exercising the option provided in para 4646A of AS11 and has been amortizing the exchange difference in respect of this loan over the balance period. That means what? It is taking the differences to FCMI TDA account. On the date of transition, the company wants to continue the same policy with regard to amortizing exchange differences. Whether the company is permitted to do so, it was following amortization, deferring. Now also it wants to continue. Is it allowed?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, yes. Exception के under it is allowed. Transition relief के under it is allowed. You can continue. So previous gap you had availed option 2. On transition you want to continue with option 2. Is it allowed? Answer is yes. Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. Now we move on to the next one. So this question is also done. Now we move on to the next one. Y Limited is a first-time adopter. The date of transition 1st April X1. On the date of transition, there is a long-term foreign currency monetary liability. That means a loan of 60 crores. Converted value $10 million at an exchange rate of $1 is equal to rupees 60. Accumulated exchange difference on the date of transition is nil. Since the company was following AS11 notified and has not exercised the option provided in para 4646A. So earlier gap, it was following option 1. That is expensing the exchange differences to the P&L. The company wants to avail the option under para 46A of AS11 prospectively or retrospectively on the date of transition to Ind AS. Okay. The company wants to avail the option of para 46A. Now, how should it account for the translation differences? So tell me, I was taking it to the P&L earlier. Now I want to take the benefit of FCMI TD account. Is it allowed?
No, sir.
No.
Not allowed, sir.
No. So what it should do, it should continue to record the gains or losses in the P&L itself, and it cannot take it to the FCMI TD account. Okay, so that takes care of illustration 12. Next. Question 3. Y Limited is a first-time adopter of Ind AS. The date of transition is 1st April X5. On 1st April X0, it obtained a 7-year US dollar loan of 100,000. It has been exercising the option provided under para 4646A. So it is currently under option 2. On the date of transition, it wants to discontinue the accounting policy as per previous gap, and it wants to follow the requirements of Ind AS 21. So it wants to come to option 1. Is this permitted?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Enough? Easy here. So quite simple questions. Okay. Nothing very difficult. Okay. Now, that takes care of foreign currency fluctuations. Okay. Now, let us come to property, plant, and equipment. Okay. Specific transitory items, third one. Property, plant, and equipment. Okay. So now, this could be not restricted to PPE, but it could also include intangible assets, investment in subsidiary, associate or joint venture in the separate financial statements. So this is the overall scope. Treatment is the same. Two options. Two options. Follow Ind AS retrospectively. Follow Ind AS retrospectively. That means right from the time you have recognized this asset, you will keep in line with the requirements of Ind AS 16, Ind AS 38, whatever is there, you will follow that. Or you can avail something known as deemed cost. You can avail something known as deemed cost. Now, what is your deemed cost? Your deemed cost is going to be previous GAAP carrying value or fair value on the date of transition. Okay. This is fair value on the date of transition. So ये दो चीजें आप कर सकते हो. Okay. So either I take retrospective Ind AS. This is not a relief. ये जो है, this is not a relief. This is full-fledged adoption without relief. Or you can go for deemed cost. Deemed cost means previous GAAP carrying value or fair value on the date of transition. Acha, tell me one thing. This fair value on the date of transition, will you call it as revaluation or will it be a starting point for Ind AS?
Starting point for Ind AS, sir.
It is a starting point for Ind AS, and that is why you will be taking it to your retained earnings. The difference between the existing value and the fair value, you will be taking it to your retained earnings and not to valuation reserve. Okay, because on this day you are starting, then you can continue this value in the future. Okay, all right, fine. So that takes care of your property, plant, and equipment. Okay. Now, let us move on to the next one. We'll see some questions. Yes.
चैप्टर में से ये पॉइंट वाइज क्वेश्चंस पूछे जाएंगे कि फुल फ्लैश क्वेश्चन हो.
फुल फ्लेजेड क्वेश्चंस भी आ चुके हैं एक दो बार. Okay. And sometimes you will have very minimal, small case studies. Okay, like what we are seeing just now. Okay. So the whole point is giving a full-fledged question comes with practical difficulties. Okay, because aapko pura they need to give the AS regime. Then they need to give you the adjustments. Then you need to prepare a consolidated balance sheet, P&L, etc. So that is not very much easily practical. Okay. So you can expect small questions, but ek to bar you have these big questions which have come. We'll run through that. Okay. All right. Now, let us come back to our study material for some questions. Okay. Now, H Limited is the holding company of Y Limited. X Limited is the holding company of Y Limited. X is required to adopt Ind AS from 1st April 20X1. X wants to avail the optional exemption of using the previous GAAP carrying values in respect of its property, plant, and equipment as its deemed cost on the date of transition. Examine whether X can do it for its consolidated financial statements. Also examine whether different entities in a group can use different bases for arriving at deemed cost for PPE in their respective standalone financial statements. Okay. See, X is the parent. Okay, X is your parent. In standalone financial statements, it wants to take which one? Fair value. PPE at fair value. Are you able to understand this? Yes. This is the first thing what it wants to do. Now, subsidiary Y in the standalone financial statements. 1 minute. Okay, sorry. My bad. PPE at previous gap, whereas SFS PPE at fair value for the subsidiary. You tell me one thing. Is this acceptable as far as separate financial statements are concerned? X wants to continue with previous gap value, whereas Y wants to do the fair value on the date of transaction. In separate financials, is it accepted? Bolo yaar.
सर इन सेपरेट तो यानी कर सकते हैं ना?
Separate to कर सकते हैं. Yes, permitted. डरते क्यों हो? Right? It is permitted in the separate financial statements. Whatever you want to do, as long as it is within the walls of 101, you can do that. But when I'm consolidating, is it permitted?
No, sir.
नहीं,
No, sir.
because the basis is different for X and Y. तो आप क्या restate करोगे? Will you restate the parent or will you restate the subsidiary? Subsidiary. So subsidiary, you are going to restate it based on previous gap value, and then you will do the consolidation with X Limited. Are we able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So that takes care of illustration 8. Next. Move on to illustration 9. For the purposes of deemed cost on the date of transition, an entity has the option of using the carrying value as the deemed cost. That's right. In this context, suggest whether carrying value is to be considered as deemed cost. Suggest which carrying value is to be considered as deemed cost. Should it be the original cost or should it be the net book value? Also examine whether this would have any impact on the future depreciation charge. So come on, tell me. When we talk about deemed cost exemption, existing value को ही ले लो, तो वो existing value कौन सा होगा? Will it be the basic or will it be the what you can say? Will it be the original cost, that is the gross block, or will it be the WDV, that is the net book value? क्या होगा?
WDV, sir. Net book block.
Yes, girls, do you agree? It will be the WDV.
Yes.
Yes. So which carrying value? Net book value. Net. I hope ये मॉड्यूल सबके पास है. Okay.
Yes,
Net book. Second, whether this would have any impact on future depreciation? क्या impact होगा? You could be having a modification in the depreciation, or you may not be having a modification in the depreciation, because depreciation is based on net book value as well as remaining useful life on the date of transition. Furthermore, these may need to be reviewed at least annually. And therefore, depreciation charge may or may not be the same as the depreciation charge under the previous cap. Are we able to follow?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
So that takes care of illustration. And now let us move on to X Limited was using the cost model. Question to test your knowledge. Okay. All right. X Limited was using cost model for its property, plant and equipment till 31st March 20X2 under the previous cap. Is my screen visible? No. Give me a minute. using the cost model for its property, plant, and equipment till 31st March X2 under the previous cap. The Ind AS became applicable to the company for financial year beginning 1st April 20X2. So till 31st March 20X2 cost model, then Ind AS became applicable. On 1st April X1, that is the date of transition to Ind AS, it used the fair value as the deemed cost. Is it allowed? Answer is yes. It used the fair value as the deemed cost in respect of its property, plant, and equipment. X wants to follow the revaluation model as its accounting policy in respect of, it wants to follow the revaluation model in respect of its property, plant, and equipment for the first time, for the first annual Ind AS financial statements. Okay, so now is it amounting to a change in accounting policy? Answer is no. It's not a change in accounting policy. This is only a starting point for the purposes of your Ind AS financial statements. Are you able to follow? Yes?
Yes.
So there is no need to change your accounting policy for that. This is only your starting point. But without prejudice to this, can it modify its accounting policy at any point in time? Answer is yes. It can modify if it feels that it results in better presentation of financial statements. But on the date of transition, taking the fair value itself does not amount to taking the fair value on the date of transition. So that takes care of question number 2. Are we able to follow? Yes. So that is done. Next, we move on to question 4. Okay. All right. Now, coming to question 4. A company has chosen to elect the deemed cost exemption in accordance with Ind AS 101. So deemed cost exemption means what? The deemed cost exemption means existing carrying amount will be taken into the Ind AS. However, it does not wish to continue with its existing policy of capitalizing exchange fluctuation on long-term monetary items to property, plant, and equipment. That is, it does not want to elect the exemption available as per Ind AS 101. So there are two things which are happening here. Okay, yahan pe na, they are marrying two things. The first part is property, plant, and equipment old value carried forward to Ind AS. Second one, Forex differences to expense out, not capitalized. Are you able to correlate what we have discussed till now on these two fronts?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Monica, Jeannie?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा. Now, ये दो चीजें on a standalone basis they can work. On a standalone basis they can work. Now, I want to marry both of them. So when I want to marry both of them, this PPE is already having
Exchange fluctuation.
gain or loss capitalized. Correct? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Now, that Forex gain or loss which is capitalized, the entity wants to expense it out. That means it wants to take it into your P&L. And whatever balance is there, it wants to take it into your retained earnings. So for example, let us suppose carrying amount is equal to 50,000. Okay. Now, carrying amount, let us suppose it is 50,000. Capitalized Forex amount is 5,000. Okay. Let us suppose. So therefore, 55,000 is the actual carrying amount of property, plant, equipment. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
the question is, when I'm moving from AS to Ind AS, under the deemed cost exemption, I should take 55,000 as the cost of asset. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
बोलो यार.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
कायदे से मेरा कैरिंग अमाउंट इज 55,000.
Yes, sir.
तो नए रेजिम
सर वॉइस नहीं आ रही है.
So let us. So 55,000 is the cost of asset that should get carried forward into Ind AS. This is the first point. But what the entity wants to do is this 5,000, which is capitalized, it does not want to avail this exemption. So it wants to take this to retained earnings. समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes,
Are you
sir.
able to follow?
Yes, sir.
And going forward, whatever forex movements are there, it wants to take this to the P&L. Are you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
ऑप्शन 1 एक्सरसाइज किया है उसने.
Yes. Standalone basis पे दोनों चीजें हैं. Yes, both are allowed. But when I marry both of them, can you see that there is a conflict that is happening? Because if I take 55,000, I am deviating from this. If I take 50,000, I am deviating from this. Are you able to understand the nature of the conflict?
Yes, sir.
Monica, Jeannie, are you able to understand the nature of the
Yes,
conflict?
sir. Yes, sir.
मैंने अगर
Sorry, sir.
50,000 ले लिया, I
हाँ.
am deviating from first point. मैंने अगर 55 ले लिया, I am deviating from the second point.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes,
So
sir.
now the question is, how do we resolve this? So what the standard tells us, you interpret it harmoniously. Harmoniously matlab, these exemptions are not meant to conflict each other. They are not meant to be in conflict of each other. So what the standard tells, itni si baat hai na, you take 55,000 as the value of your asset. So I meet the first requirement. And going forward, I will not capitalize any amount in the value of the asset, any forex gain or loss in the value of the asset. I will straight away take it to the P&L. I will straight away take it to the P&L. Are you able to follow?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
है ना? समझ में आ गया ना अपने को? Yeah.
हाँ.
So that takes care of number 1 and number 2. So we do it on a harmonious construction basis. We do it on a harmonious construction basis. That is how we marry both of these points put together. Okay? So that is what is given in your solution. In such a case, how would the company be required to adjust the foreign exchange fluctuation already capitalized under previous cap? So this is the question. So how would the company be adjusting? What is capitalized? You straight away bring it forward into the carrying amount of the asset. And going forward, whatever amounts are there, you take it to the P&L. Are we okay with this? Yes. So that takes care of question number 4 for you. Okay. All right. Now, coming to the next one, business combinations. Okay. Now, this is interesting. Okay. So, fourth one. Business combinations. Okay. When we talk about business combinations, this one. See, What is the comparative standard for business combinations in AS?
AS 14.
AS 14. Okay. To AS 14 to some extent. But there is a big difference. Why? You do not have the definition of business, what is given in Ind AS 103. It is not there in AS 14. You do not have the definition of control, what is there in Yeah. So coming to AS 14, we do not have the definition of business. We do not have the definition of control. We do not have the definitions of contingent considerations. We do not have any of these definitions which are included. All these items are there in Ind AS 103 or in Ind AS 110. Okay. So now these items have to be factored in when I have a business combination on the date of transition to Ind AS. Okay. Secondly, when we talk about control under Ind AS 110, what do you mean by control? Control essentially means the power to control the activities of the entity in which you have invested and to get the returns from those activities. Are you able to follow?
Yes, sir.
So therefore, ये चीजें तो AS14 में है ही नहीं. So for example, it talks about the power. In no way Ind AS 103 is concerned with the stake or the shareholding that you are going to acquire. बात ही नहीं होती है shareholding की. So for example, let us suppose A is holding 1000 equity shares in B. C is having 10,000 optionally convertible debentures in B, convertible at the option of the holder. Now, if I was under AS, who would do the consolidation? A is
Sir.
holding 100% stakes. So therefore, who would do the consolidation?
A.
A would consolidate B. Under Ind AS, who would do the consolidation? You guys have studied 110 and 103, right?
सर पैरा 4 और की कुछ कंडीशंस है वो चेक करने के बाद we decide.
ये सब करने के बाद C is having 10,000 optionally convertible debentures, convertible at the option of P, and उसमें ऐसा कोई reason नहीं है that C will not convert. It is favorable to C. There is nothing that will prevent C from exercising this option. All those things are there. So who will consolidate under Ind AS? Who will consolidate? C.
सर सी क्योंकि बिकॉज सी के बाद में कन्वर्ट होने के बाद राइट लूज हो जाएगा.
So
Control
what is
lose हो
the
जाएगा.
key difference is Ind AS considers potential shares and potential voting rights, whereas AS21 only considers the shareholding. So the gamut is very wide under your Ind AS regime. It is not only factoring existing shareholding, it also looks beyond that and it factors whatever potential control is existing and how much it has the ability to exercise that control. If the rights are substantive, then definitely go ahead and do the consolidation under C. So C is controlling B. A does not control B. So you can see that there is a huge shift in the way the control itself is looked at from the perspective of Ind AS. So therefore, when I look at change from AS to Ind AS, it becomes a change in accounting policy. Suppose the date of transition is 1/4/2020 and C acquired the OCD's date of purchase of OCDs is 1/4/2013. Now, the OCDs were acquired on 1/4/2013. The date of transition is 1/4/2020. So now on the date of transition, who has to show what? Currently, C is showing it as investments in under your Ind AS. Now you will show it as your business combination. Okay. In AS, OCDs shown as investment only, nothing else. But in Ind AS, consolidate, calculate PC, non-controlling interest, fair value of assets and liabilities of B, and goodwill. ये सारी चीजें आपको करनी पड़ेगी. You have to do all these things. And from which date you have to do? I'm not yet come to any transition, exemptions, etc. So therefore, this has to be done with effect from 1/4/2030. Means you have to go back 7 years in time and then do the fair valuation calculation of PC, NCI, fair value of assets and liabilities, and then determine the goodwill. You remember this in Ind AS 103, right? बोलो यार.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
तो ये सारी चीजें आपको आज के तारीख में 7 years old values लेके करना पड़ेगा. Okay? You have to take this from that date. Is it okay? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now suppose ये एक subsidiary, doing this for one subsidiary itself is a hectic activity. Suppose you have 10, look at a company like Reliance or L&T or whatever it is, they have hundreds, 200, 300 subsidiaries. And then they have to also look at who actually has the control. So we really don't know. So now when I look at that, this is a very, very menacing task. Itna आसान नहीं है. Yaha, in academics, you have all the data given to you on a piece of paper, you only have to calculate. In real life, you have to go back 7 years in time, look at assets and liabilities of B. 7 years back in time, who were the people in B also may not be there right now. What were assets and liabilities present at that time? All that to do is a very, very Herculean task. So what Ind AS 101 has said is, it has given a transitory guidance. It says, opt for retrospective restatement with effect from a particular date. You can specify the date from which you will restate. So for example, 1/4/13 you have acquired, date of transition is 1/4/2020. You will say that I will do a retrospective restatement of business combinations with effect from 1/4/2017. You can pick up any date of your choice. You can pick up any date of your choice. So what will all the companies do? They will say the date of transition itself will be my date of retrospective restatement. Keep the things very simple. On the date of transition, these items must be treated as your subsidiaries. There is no excuse on that. But you are avoiding the efforts of fair value calculations years and years ago when you had purchased a subsidiary. So you select a particular date. From that date, you will do the retrospective restatement. Opt for retrospective restatement with effect from a particular date. Avoid restatement prior to that date. Avoid restatement prior to that date, but show as subsidiary on the date of transition. Show as subsidiary on the date of transition. Are we able to understand this? Yes. Are we able to understand? Any doubts? No doubts? Clear?
Yes,
Bolo
sir.
yaar. Yes. All right. Another peculiar things. Under accounting standards, were you permitted to show negative minority interest?
No, sir.
No. But
No, sir.
under AS, are you permitted to show negative minority interest? Yes,
Mm,
दिखा सकते हो, because minority interest is a part of shareholders funds, right? So you can show it as negative. So when I do a retrospective restatement, should I have to restate the NCI? Answer is yes. So suppose I opt for retrospective restatement from 1/4/2013, then 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, these 7 years, whatever profits or losses the subsidiary has generated, I will have to do full-fledged consolidations to arrive at the values as on 1st April 2020. Are you able to understand? Yes. The meaning of retrospective restatement समझ में आ रहा है अपने को? Yes.
Yes,
yes.
sir.
You have to basically go back in time 1/4/13, calculate PC, NCI, fair value of net assets, goodwill. Story does not end here. I have to come to 1/4/2020. So when I come from here to here, I will have to add the profit and loss of each of these years to consolidate. So when I do that, I will arrive at the balances on 1st April 2020. Are we okay with this? Yes. So NCI also will be restated. NCI also will be restated. But if you do not opt for restatement from a prior date, you will say whatever is required from the date of transition. Then that itself will be your starting point. That itself will become your starting point. Any doubts? Any doubts? No doubts?
Sir, explain it again. Last point जो आपने
ठीक है. So ये समझा 1/4/13 to 1/4/2020 का जो जर्नी है. Did you understand? Yes. This is the date of transition. So to come to this date of transition, I will have to consolidate year on year basis. The profits, the losses, restate the NCI, etc., whatever is there. And in between, whatever asset acquisition, loss of control, change in stakes, whatever has happened, you will have to give effect to that. You will have to give effect to that. So that will give you the value of NCI, goodwill on the date of transition. And then you transit into Ind AS. And then you transit into Ind AS. But if I take restatement date on 1st April 2020, that means it will be as if date of acquisition is 1/4/2020. So you calculate the PC on this date, you calculate fair value of assets and liabilities on this date, you calculate NCI on this date, you calculate goodwill on this date. Everything is calculated from 1st April 2020. This 7 years of efforts which you are putting is no longer required to be put. You can start off with 1/4/2020 and then go forward using the regular consolidation principles. Did you follow?
यस सर बट क्वेश्चन एक और है सर इसमें जो प्री एक्विजिशन प्रॉफिट होगा वो सारा का सारा वो पोस्ट एक्विजिशन वाला प्रॉफिट भी प्री कंसिडर कर लेंगे फिर हम,
प्री
मतलब
एक्विजिशन एज ऑन 1st April 2020 जो भी रहेगा दैट विल the profits earned up to 1st April 2020 will be regarded as pre acquisition. After
ओके
that जो भी रहेगा that will be your post acquisition.
पोस्ट
Need
एक्विजिशन,
to do a retrospective restatement.
ओके सर,
It is a simplification that is being given to you. It is not right. I'm telling you, Ind AS 101 में जो exemptions है, none of them are in conformity with the other Ind ASs. But this is meant to simplify your transition. This is not meant to complicate your transition. Okay. Otherwise, I'm transitioning to Ind AS means हमें न जाने कितने साल के consolidations करने पड़ेंगे, right? So therefore, it is meant to simplify your work. All right.
ऑलराइट सर,
It doesn't matter asset acquisition was there before the date of transition. Once you have fixed the date of acquisition as the date of transition, whatever happens will be as is position on the date of transition. Okay, Vinay? So as
ओके
is position on date of transition is what you will look and consolidate. That's it. Okay?
ओके सर,
Yes. All right. So that takes care of business combinations. Okay. All right. So business combinations. This is the last part for today. No restatement. For past business combinations. This is if we take the restatement date to be the date of transition, or you can go for a second option, restate past business combinations with effect from a particular date. With effect from a particular date. All acquisitions after selected date need to be retrospectively restated. Need to be retrospectively restated. Prior acquisitions need not be restated. Need not be restated. Are you able to understand? Yes?
यस सर,
Yes, sir.
Date of transition is date of restatement. Easiest and obviously most preferred. Okay? All and most preferred. Okay? All right. So that takes care of our discussions. That takes care of our discussions. Are we okay with this? Yes?
यस सर,
All right. So with that, we conclude today's discussions. Okay. We will now go ahead, revise whatever we have done till now. Chunk is over. जो बचा हुआ है, those are all small items. We can close it in the next session. Okay. All right. So any questions till now? Any questions?
नो सर,
No questions. All right. So that's it. See you guys on
थैंक यू
Thursday.
सर,
Okay. Thanks everyone. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Concluded. Yeah.